So just the other day, we were actually lucky enough to get an interview with some of the developers from Battlefield 2042 on the Shack News YouTube channel. And I pretty much just wanted to break down that info for you guys. There's not a whole lot to go through, but it's mostly talking about essentially their love of Battlefield 4 and how they looked at Battlefield 4 as a bit of inspiration for Season 5. So the information is definitely very interesting nonetheless. Now, if you guys are interested in Battlefield 2042 and want to see more content, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. So on the Shack News YouTube channel, Shashank Uchil and Bruce Brody, who are the lead level designer and the producer, they were actually interviewed about the thought process behind Season 5. Now, we already somewhat knew about this, but they based a lot of their designs on paying homage to Battlefield 4. They sort of teased that leading up to the release of Season 5, saying that this map was meant to be essentially like paying homage to Battlefield 4 through its design and sort of taking inspiration from one of the maps in that game, which was Zavod. Now, they once again confirmed in this interview that they did heavily look at Zavod from Battlefield 4 when they were making Reclaimed, and they even said that they pretty much considered a remaster of the map, but they wanted to pay homage in a different way rather than just straight up remastering it. They said that a lot of people can often complain about stuff like that because obviously we've already got that map in the past. As much as I think a lot of people do love remasters, and I would be absolutely the same, I do also get that if we've already played that map for years and years, it's not really new content if you're just remastering a map. So they took the, I guess, alternate route of making a map from scratch that was more based on Zavod from Battlefield 4 rather than just literally remaking it. And I personally think that was definitely the best decision. Now, how they sort of used that as inspiration is that they took the two main buildings of Zavod, which I'm sure if you guys have played the map, you'll know the one that I'm talking about, or the two buildings, I should say, that I'm talking about. They were right in the center and they were pretty much the focal point of the map for the most part. They then also took the bunker system, which to be fair was pretty much underneath those two buildings in the original map, and obviously on this map it is in a different location, but they also used that as a bit of inspiration, and even just like the mix of open but also forested areas, that was also taken from, I guess, inspiration from Zavod, because the outer areas of the map was very similar to that. And then even down to the fact that there are like old wrecked trains and stuff like that, there's just a lot of stuff that they took inspiration from and used as essentially the base foundation for the map that we know as Reclaimed. They then said though that once that was essentially done, they pretty much made the map from scratch like they would with any other map once they were past that point, which I think is a really good way of doing it, kind of taking some of the key ingredients from previous maps, laying them out as essentially like the foundation of the new map, but then pretty much creating the new map from scratch. It means that it's not relying too heavily on the previous map when they are doing it like that, because I do think if they pretty much just copied Zavod, for example, even if the layout was slightly different, but there was just so many like overly noticeable things that were copies from the original map, that would once again lead to a lot of people saying, oh, this is just too similar to the previous map, it doesn't feel new and refreshing. So once again, I think they actually did that in a perfect way. Now, they actually also talked about Destruction a little bit. They said that they listened to our feedback on Destruction. They pretty much mentioned they wanted to do it as well. It just must have been probably due to the lack of time they had when it was launching, because I think we all know at this point the game seems to have been rushed out the door, but they pretty much both said they've wanted to focus a lot on Destruction anyway, and they've heard our feedback on that too, and so they really tried to focus on that a little bit more in this season. We obviously know that the trees in the sort of outer section down to the bottom left of the map, all of those trees can be knocked over and it really does change the landscape of the map, but then also even the central buildings can be pretty much blown up. Obviously the frames are still there, but the outer walls are obviously pretty heavily destructible as well, and so that is something they've really wanted to be sort of focusing on more as the seasons have gone on. Something else they mentioned as well was about the AA turrets. They said that they've really been considering adding those for quite a while, and it was something that they've pretty much had in their pocket for a while now, but that this seemed like the perfect map to add it back to the game. They sort of mentioned about the size of the map, and that on a really small map like that, for example, the attack helicopters and stuff can have an absolute field day because people are sort of condensed a little bit more. So they felt that this was the perfect map to pretty much reintroduce the AA turrets to kind of stop with the aerial superiority, because it either had to be that or they essentially just had to remove the aerial vehicles and just only have ground vehicles, which for me personally I would not have cared about whatsoever, but I know a lot of people who main aerial vehicles, for example, they wouldn't have been too happy. So I think the AA turrets are definitely a really solid middle ground, and I, for myself anyway, am very glad to have them back in the game. Now lastly, they also mentioned the squad management system, which obviously we sort of heard about leading into Season 5 and we still unfortunately haven't had it. They did still mention that it is going to be in the next update and there are more improvements to it on the way as well. so no doubt will have multiple iterations. It'll probably have its launch state and then no doubt will get improved as it goes. So that is definitely very exciting to hear about. I know that for myself, and I know for a lot of other people as well, every time I try to play with friends, it is honestly so freaking frustrating to pretty much just try and even get into the same squad half the time. It's obviously a lot better now, but especially at the launch, probably the first 6 or so months of the game, it was honestly a nightmare to even squad up with friends. So I think a lot of people are going to be very happy to have the squad management system back, and it is good to hear. Even though we kind of knew that was happening, it's good to hear that that is still on the radar. But anyway, that is pretty much it for today's video. There wasn't a ton of info. It was only about a 10-minute or so interview, but I thought it was very interesting nonetheless, especially all the talk about Battlefield 4. And so I thought I'd break it down for you guys nonetheless. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button, and if you guys are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe with those notifications on. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.